Woke left Democrats are quite adept at hyperbole until reality sets in, and then things become very confusing. They're left with blood on their hands, with the foolishness of their ideology exposed to the entire world. That's assuming, of course, that they're still standing. All right, we need a case in point, and let's take a look at New York City. What is the problem here? Well, the problem here is the mayor of New York City, who is a staunch advocate of his city's sanctuary status, is now changing his mind. His name is Eric Adams. I've decided to call him Flip Adams because he's flipping his perspective in face of reality. So what is reality? What is the problem that he is facing, he is encountering? Well, of course, it's the same problem that all of us are encountering, but this is unique to New York City, and each city has its own unique problems. As a result of open borders that the Democrats want because it brings in people into the country who will hijack our democracy. Okay, it's a republic. Thank you for correcting me. Here are 6 things we need to take into account. Number 1. We've got a mayor who has planned $53 million for debit cards, a scheme that would give families of uninvited guests, that's what I'm calling these people, who have 2 children under the age of 17. They will get up to $15,200 a year. All right, so why is that a problem? Well, it's kind of obvious, right? But I'm going to say it anyhow. What effectively the city is doing is they are giving these people $15,000 a year to come to their city. It's really that simple. Now, you got to keep in mind that in Central America, Mexico, south of the border, many of these areas, $15,000 is a huge amount of money. But you say, now hang on a second, they're moving to New York City. New York City is one of the most expensive places on the planet. No problem because, well, it seems the city government is also housing these people. We'll get to that in just a second. The second problem is that the city, that is New York City, expects to have spent $10.6 billion by the end of 2025. How much is $10.6 billion? Well, that's even more than the fine that Donald Trump is expected to pay for whatever they're saying he's guilty of. Third, the number of police in New York City is going to be cut by 20%. 1 out of 5 cops is going to be gone. Now, this is a city that is already being hampered by crime. And you can see this downward spiral. So you need money to pay for cops. They don't have money to pay for cops because they're giving it to uninvited guests. And so that increases crime. And what happens when crime increases? Well, productive businesses pack up and leave the city, which means the city has even less revenue. It's a downward cycle. Number 4 is education spending will be cut by $1 billion. Don't you love Democrats? They're the ones who say they're advocates of education. Then they implement programs like open borders, which effectively is what we have now. They implement open borders and similar programs that drain the economy, drain the coffers of municipalities, drain the coffers of virtually every government that is affected by open borders. There's no money for education, or there's less, I should say, money for education. Number 5, schools, hotels, community centers, and some places even private residences, say Michigan. But in New York City, these places have been turned over to 180,000 uninvited guests. Now get this, these are people who showed up in New York City just in the last 18 months, year and a half. So if this continues every 18 months, New York City is going to be it's going to be Mexico City. It's not going to be the same place. And once it becomes Mexico City North, call it North Mexico City, it's not going to go back. These people are not going to pack up and leave on their own. Now, the 6th problem. Times Square was the site of an attack, as you know, on 2 police officers and the individuals who were arrested, the suspects. They were freed on bail within hours after their arrest. So the whole world saw this. If you didn't see it on the news, which I don't even know if anybody watches the news anymore, it's kind of passe, but if you probably saw the video somewhere, maybe on YouTube or elsewhere, of these police officers being brutally attacked by uninvited guests. And this is in a city that plans to cut the police department by 20%. So the surprising thing is that there was even police there to be attacked. In the future, they're not even going to be there, so it's not going to be a problem. Criminals will just run free, which is pretty much the case now, but even more so. As the budget is cut, forcing the police department to have fewer cops on the beat. So the bottom line is that New York City's Mayor Eric Adams is flipping on his campaign promise that his city would retain its sanctuary status. And this is a problem we're having elsewhere. Take a look at Chicago, for example. In Chicago, the idea has been floated to put sanctuary city status on the ballot so that the citizens, who are overwhelmingly Democrat, can decide if they want to keep this massive inflow of uninvited guests into their city. And the Democrats' leadership, not the Democrats rank and file, but the Democratic Party leadership is adamantly opposed to putting that on the ballot. Because what's going to happen is Democrats, Democratic Party voters are going to vote against Democratic Party leaders. Which makes you wonder, why are these people even Democrats? Maybe they will flip, like Flip Adams. Maybe the voters will flip and become Republicans. I doubt it because Democrats are giving them a handout. And they got to vote for their handout. But that's a possibility. Then you have this thing in Michigan, where my understanding is that Governor Gretchen has decided that people in her state should open their homes to uninvited guests. That'd be cool. What if every home in Michigan just said, yeah, we got a bedroom, we may have a spare bedroom, maybe not, you can sleep in our bed, we don't care. Just have these uninvited guests become invited guests into their homes, everywhere except for Gretchen's home. I think she'll probably be the one exception. This is what is happening. So we say that, we said at the very onset, the Democrats are quite adept at hyperbole. They say this is a good idea, this thing is going to work, and when they implement it, they just fall flat on their face. Or as I said earlier, they're left standing with blood on their hands. I guess I'm going to have to change that to say, nah, they're not left standing, they fall flat on their face and they get a bloody nose. But the problem is, as you already figured out, the rest of us are having to pay for it. And the only solution that I see is that we as a people, I can't use the word insurrection, but we need to have an insurrection, if it were possible, on Election Day. But that seems to be very challenging, but maybe not. Maybe it will happen. But even if it does, even if we are able to stop this, or at least slow it down dramatically through the electoral process, that's not going to last. Typically Republicans, conservatives will stay in control for a short period of time. And then the far left woke Democrats, replace them. And it goes right back to the downward trend. So it's like we go from downward trend to pause, downward trend, pause, downward trend. And eventually, we as a nation are going to hit bottom. Okay, I'm in my 70s. I probably won't be here when that happens. But our young Americans, these are the ones who are going to have to face the consequences, and unfortunately, you know who they're going to blame, right? They're going to blame baby boomers. See you all next time.